Hello. What an incredible venue and what an incredible location for this sort of conversation. Firstly, it's a pleasure to speak after, I think, one of the most extraordinary leaders of our age, Kirsten. So I want to thank Kirsten for her talk and her actual leadership in terms of driving what she's been driving in many places. I want to talk a little bit about the scale of what we're about to face, but also why the inner development goals are absolutely key in that transition and the relationship of the two. I'm going to shoot past a few things. I'm not going to necessarily talk about Dark Matter Labs. You can hear about our work in other places. What I want to talk about is this. What does a decade of deep transition really mean? I think you've heard lots about the despair and the kind of degrees of change. I want us to start by embracing the dark to see the light. And why I say that is too often there is what I would call a false optimism, a false hope which is sold to people. It's going to be just fine. We're going to just tweak a few technologies and we're just about going to get there. It's not that sort of transition. This is a 1 in a 400-year transformation, a transformation of how we see ourselves, how we relate to the world. It isn't the sort of technological edge of market fix. So to embrace the darkness is really critical. You've heard some of the facts today. If we look at where our current policy infrastructure is taking us, it's taking us to currently at least 3 degrees. 3 degrees if you're conservative. Now, 3 degrees. 3 degrees average is 5 degrees on land. 5 degrees on land is 8 degrees in cities like Birmingham. 8 degrees warmer. And remember what Kirsten said. At 1.7 to 1.9 degrees, we lose one of our food baskets, right? At between 2.5 to 2.9 degrees, all those red areas go outside inhabitable human zones. So when people say 1.2 billion people on the move, that's what they start to mean. And when people say, we're going to be just fine, we're going to deal with 2% growth, 2% growth means in 25 years, you've doubled our consumption of energy and materiality. It's almost a one-to-one correlation. And then you have architects and designers saying, hey, I'm going to solve this problem because I'm going to build you a timber house. But the best timber house that we've got gets you to 150 kilograms per square meter of carbon, embodied carbon, kilograms. We need to get to 6.3 kilograms. 6.3, not 150, 6.3. Everyone talks about the circular economy. It's like youth sex. No one's doing it. Denmark, 4% of the material economy is circular. We need it to be 97%. I say this stuff for us to recognize the quantum of this process. The biodiversity issues, you'll all know them. Extinction level events. How many people here are vegan? Put your hands up, please. You should all be vegan. I'm sorry, it's not a moral question anymore. Look at this. This stuff here is all the wild animals in the world. Just there. That's the wild birds. That's cattle. If you're not Trump and you think you're sane and you're intelligent and you listen to facts, I don't see a logic. We all think we're clever, right? We all think we're sensible. I'm presenting you data. Look it up yourself, figure it out yourself. Energy. Look, between 2019 to 2020, the global energy demand increase was greater than all the installed renewables. The demand increase was greater than installed renewables. I'm saying this for us to keep aware what is the type of change we're talking about. This stat from Demos Helsinki is really great because it just shows if you do all of the things, the colorful things, yeah, you're nowhere close to net zero. You're no longer traveling, you're eating locally, you're making, that's the gap that's available in the system. That's the gap. So, let's start materializing this. How many homes do you think Europe can afford to build? Because it's signed up to the Paris Accord. It has, all of Europe. It can afford to build 144,000 homes total, all of Europe. UK has just now, the potential new government is committed to building 350,000 alone. Right? 350,000. All of Europe can afford to build 144,000. Currently, we're projecting 1.44 million homes being built. So when we take this climate challenge and materialize it, it changes everything about our reality. This shirt, I don't wear expensive shirts, normal shirts, £30 shirt. If I priced in social and environmental costs, this shirt is between 250 to 450 pounds. So you buy one shirt every 10 years. Everything else, you're externalizing. You buy this shirt for £35, all the other costs are externalized and killing other people. In the future or in the present. So why I'm saying all this is not a minor technological transformation. This is a transformation of how we relate to the world. It's a 1 in a 400-year transformation. Climate change is a symptom of a structural failure. A failure in our relationship with the planet. And when we talk about it, actually Kirsten and I were in a location when we spoke about these exact words. Be very careful about the language you use. Climate breakdown. Loss of predictable weather. Loss of predictable weather means you lose insurability. You lose insurability, you lose capital markets. And we're seeing this in parts of the world. So language matters here. The world that we see is changing. And there's a massive relevance gap in the world that we're talking about. A massive relevance gap between the practices that we talk about and what's required. We know we have to shift our material economy. We have to make it massively more durable. We have to make it massively more circular. We have to shift our economy from material economically growth-driven to intangibles, care, creativity, complex cognition have to be the centerpiece of our growth. We have to reimagine our food systems. We have to reimagine our biointegrity landscapes. And we have to reimagine what it means to be human and what it means for human development. And this requires a new type of response. And this is why I think the IDGs are a really important landscape. Because it requires us to think about the world differently. And it requires us to think deeper into the problem. We often, when we talk about transformation, we talk about the technologies of transformation. Air source heat pumps, trees maybe even. But actually much more fundamental than that is our worldview. Much more fundamental than that is our theory of property. Property, let's imagine it for a moment. Property as an idea is about objectifying something, turning it into an object, definable, enslaving it to something, giving me soul enslavements, and it's a right, i.e. I have right over it. I don't have a responsibility to it, I have a right over it. It is a worldview constructed to make the world dead and consumable as a resource. In fact, most employment laws are largely extensions of slavery. You don't have freedom of speech when you speak. At work, you're controlled. Your role is defined. We've built a worldview about enslaving the world in many, many formats. A tree's value is largely in its timber function. People talk about its carbon value, it's relatively still nominal. A whale's value is still largely in how it can be consumed as meat and other formats, not in all the vast ecological benefits that it provides. So my first proposition to you is that this is a worldview shift of how we relate to the world. We can no longer relate, as we have done, through a theory of dominion. Humans have dominion over the planet, in fact, man. We have to start to become in relationship with the world. And this is a function of us entering a small, entangled world problem. No longer can we ignore our externalities. No longer can our externalities be ignored because they are now feedbacking into us and self-terminating us. So we have to now to live in relationship. The idea of living in divisibility and individuality no longer works. At the root of this, however, I think is a bigger question. It's a question about who are we? And we have to recognize a transformation in imagining ourselves. And I would argue that every age has reimagined what it means to be human in order to reimagine the world around it. So what is our imagination of being human in the 21st century and the 22nd century? How do we recognize that we are multitudes? We are not singular. How do we recognize that actually we are they in our language? Everyone, all of us are multitudes. None of us are singular linear identities. My intelligence is not mine, it is in relationship with other people's. My relationship forms my intelligence, not a possession. Yet we've created a conceit to imagine that I am intelligent. I'm not a being, I'm a becoming. How do we operate in moving from a noun-based world to a verb-based world? Recognizing life in everything around us. This, for me, is a foundational transformation of what it means to be human. And reimagining that, I think, is at the core of what I would argue that IDGs are here to do. And without it, we cannot make this transformation of 8 billion people around the world. So my ask is, how do we build a new World Bank for financing the planetary transformation? This will not be done from Sweden alone. This will not be done from Copenhagen alone. This will not be done from one country alone. We need to transform human consciousness as a key project in the transformation of our relationship with the planet if we are to make it. That, I think, is a foundational transformation. This is why this space is critical. And when we do that, we transform everything around us. Monetary production, property rights, and everything that follows. Because that worldview transformation is absolutely intrinsic to actually addressing climate change or the biodiversity losses or the fact that we're polluted with mycotoxins, all of us, in terms of plastics. That is all a worldview problem, and it's rooted in transforming ourselves. With that, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Indy. Also, just to you, as you just took us into this darkness, invited us to embrace this darkness, I also want to put that question to you. What helps you to actually persevere throughout that darkness?
So my number one thing here is that the darkness is not there to scare us. The darkness is there to invite us to be great. That is the invitation. Your greatness, our greatness. There is no kids that we're going to hand over this problem to. By the time this problem is handed over to children, we're all dead. We are the generation, the people here in this auditorium. The darkness is an invitation for you to be great. 1 in 400 years great. That is the only invitation possible. So it's not a means to scare us, but a genuine invitation for extraordinariness that I think is required for the level of transformation that we need.
Thank you so much. Indy Johar.